Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 66 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr. It is January 24th, 2023, and for this feature, I have Alex Grossi, guitarist of Quiet Riot, as my featured guest. During this feature, Alex talks about his almost 20-year-long career with Quiet Riot. We also discuss the new Quiet Riot single, I Can't Hold On, and the upcoming celebrating 40 years of Mental Health Quiet Riot tour. So here he is, Alex Grossi. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Rock Interview Series. Today we have a great special guest. We have Alex Grossi of Quiet Riot with us today, and we're going to be talking about a brand new Quiet Riot single that just kicks ass called I Can't Hold On, and also the upcoming Quiet Riot tour. But first of all, Alex, how you doing?
I'm good. Recovery from COVID.
Yeah, there was a show that Quiet Riot played a few days back, and you weren't playing that particular show.
No, I tested positive for COVID last Monday when the show was last Thursday, so we had to get somebody in there to fill in. Obviously, I couldn't fly, and I was pretty much laid up. So, but it's not the first time this has happened to us. Our drummer got COVID last year, and we did 2 shows without him. I don't think anyone even noticed, really. I mean, it's pretty much that particular show was kind of high profile because there's a lot of bands on the bill, but a lot of bands have job it out whenever someone falls ill or whatever. It's really no big deal, and kind of a necessity nowadays with everything,
Yeah. Well, I definitely noticed because Eddie Trunk had some live broadcast from YouTube, and I noticed that it wasn't you. Is it typical for most bands to have someone nowadays with COVID that can step in at the last second like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of thankfully there's a lot of professionals out there that can learn. That can learn a set in a couple of days with no rehearsal. I remember I filled in for Snake and Skid Row back in 2008, and I got the call. I had no rehearsal and barely any sound check, and just went out on stage with them in Toronto for the first show. And
Wow, that's
yeah.
incredible. But you knew before that, if anything came up, so you were prepared for it in case anything would come up, right?
Always.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. I want to talk about the new single. Quiet Riot made some headlines recently with the release of I Can't Hold On, which is on a remastered release of the Rehab record, which originally came out in 2006.
2006, yes.
Yeah. A great story behind the song that you actually had music that you wrote with original Quiet Riot vocalist Kevin DeBro. And you found it on an iPod that you had.
Yeah.
Briefly tell us the story. How did that come about, and how did you, all of a sudden, check out, find it on your iPod?
Well, when I first joined Quiet Riot, I first met Kevin DeBro in 2003 when he had his solo band. He did a covers album, and I started to come out here to Vegas where he lived and started writing songs with him. And we wrote about 6 or 7 songs, 2 of which ended up on Rehab, and the rest of them just were on a couple CDRs that made it to various, CD folders or sock drawers. But that particular song I had uploaded into my iTunes account, and it went to my old iPod, and I'd forgotten about it until 2021, where I went digging for it and I found it, and we were able to extract the demo and finish it up in 2022.
Wow.
So 19 years later.
Wow. So how much did you have to add to the song? I mean, was it pretty much like it was? I mean, I know you added Rudy Sarzo on it. The demo that you have on your iPod, was it just very, very basic, just you and Kevin, or I think Chuck Wright was in the band at the time too.
That the demo was just by Kevin and I, and Frankie when he got sick, he started recording a lot of drums for future use, which was really smart of him. Yeah. And we had a drum track that almost dropped in perfectly,
Wow.
And so, then we added Rudy. Dizzy from Guns N' Roses played piano on it. And we had this amazing background singer, I forget her name. Romeo Johnson, he's the guy who did the vocal arrangement. He's worked with like Michael Jackson and, all those heavyweights. So it really came together. It was a labor of love. And then Regina Banali, Frankie's widow, put together this amazing video to go with it. which she's a
Yeah.
documentary filmmaker, and she was literally filming throughout Frankie's illness, and then towards the end of Frankie with the illness, and then when we picked up doing the song, she always had her phone out filming. So what you see in that video is exactly what happened.
Yeah. Well, both the song and the video is just outstanding. I mean,
Thank you.
yeah, it's and it's not just me. It's like, all the reviews I've read on it, and you go and on Facebook and see all the comments. You go on YouTube, you see all the comments. Everybody's 100% behind the song. The song is one of the better Quiet Riot songs of all time, I think.
That's what a lot of people have said, and I know Kevin was really proud of that track because he would call me like 10 times a day whenever he had a new lyric or verse, and I recorded the music for it. And we were driving back to LA, and every hour or so he called me with another vocal melody, and he recorded all of them. And then the following week at the airport, we were flying out for a show. Actually, it was a little later than that. He ended up finishing it, gave it to me on a CDR. So that's all I had. And yeah, the vocal you hear on that track is exactly what he demoed at his house. And that
Wow.
just goes to show it ain't the microphone, it's a singer,
Yeah, for sure. It's great hearing him on a new track as well. Why didn't that track make it onto the record originally when it first came out?
There's a lot of songs that didn't make it on the Rehab, and we're supposed to go on the next one. Unfortunately, Kevin passed away before that could happen.
Oh, I see. Okay. Why did you decide to release this song on the reissue of Rehab as opposed to saving it for like a new Quiet Riot record?
Well, I mean, I think going forward, anything Quiet Riot, we have some other Kevin tracks in the pipeline as well. We're still working on them, but we probably want to have a new release be Jizzy Pearl only.
Right.
I think it'd be kind of weird we talked about it, but I think putting a record out that was like half Kevin, half Jizzy is kind of weird. So I think we have new material with Jizzy that we're working on as well with Frankie's tracks. So it's all nothing set in stone, but we're starting to figure it out.
Yeah. Is there I'm hoping that song is going to be added to your set list.
We're working on that. Yeah, we have I mean, yeah, I think I'm trying to figure out I've been working on with my guitar how to compensate for the extra guitar tracks and the piano and everything. So I think it'll work.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm getting a
definitely.
ton of emails to do it, so I think we had to have to.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty much a hit single right now. So I mean you can't deny the
Yeah,
fans a single. I mean,
yeah,
your set list right now, it's pretty incredible. I mean, I'd hate to see you guys drop a song, but I really think that needs to be added.
yeah. We're gonna do it. I mean, we'll probably start up in March. We really get busy in March. That's when the whole 40th anniversary of Mental Health kicks off.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Do you pretty much have all the dates booked? Or are you still booking dates right now, or is there possibilities that you might like hook up on a package tour or anything like that? Or
Yeah, there's a lot of things in the pipeline. We've got about almost 30 dates already booked. They're not announced yet,
well,
but it'll probably it's gonna be pretty extensive.
yeah, I mean there seems to be well, there has been a resurgence of Quiet Riot for a while now, but it just seems like, you know, it was terrible when Frankie died, but and then you guys, went on for like a year, and then Rudy joined the band, and it just seemed like
Hmm.
that really, nothing against, Chuck Wright, but it seemed like that really gave it a boost, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he'd been. It's funny. I always say Rudy and I pass each other in the hallway because his version of the band dissolved in 2003, and I met Kevin later in 2003, and I've now been in the band 20 years, and Mental Health is turning 40. So I've been in 20 half of those 40 years I've been there, and
Yeah,
Rudy wasn't. So now we're together, and I. It's just too bad we couldn't all be there on the same stage together, but
yeah, yeah.
it's what Frankie wanted, you know.
Yeah. Was that the game plan? I know that Frankie had a plan to continue Quiet Riot, if anything would happen to him, and unfortunately it did. But was that the plan to have Rudy rejoin the band at some point, or did that just kind of like happen
Well,
unrelated to that?
I think Frankie wanted to bring him back sooner while he was alive to kind of ease the transition, but then COVID happened, and he was in the middle of doing chemo. So his doctor said, "I don't care how good you feel, you're not getting on a plane with your compromised immune system because COVID will kill you."
Yeah.
So he had to back out, and unfortunately, he didn't make it to the end of COVID.
Yeah, that's so unfortunate. I mean, he's kept his talent like right to the very end. I remember him putting out a video with him playing the drums, like, shortly before he passed, and he was
Yep.
still spot on.
It's amazing. Even though he wasn't able to tour, he did a lot of recording, obviously, left those drum tracks behind. And he also played drums on that Hookers and Blow record I did with Dizzy. We did
Yeah.
2 Zeppelin tracks. And if you listen to those tracks, you would never know he was like 130 pounds with a tube sticking out of him. It sounds like a 25-year-old kid in there on that track.
Wow. Yeah, I
So,
believe it. I believe it.
yeah.
Were there anything like before he like found out they had cancer where he was sick for a while, or did it just happen suddenly? How did that all come about?
Um, I believe had some shortness of breath and had some blood clots in his legs, which is no big deal. And when
Yeah.
he went in to get the blood clots addressed, the scan picked up something on his pancreas. And
Oh
then
man.
and with pancreatic cancer, it doesn't really show till later on, till it's too late. And then they're like,
Yeah.
okay, but they told him in April of 2019 that he had 6 months to live, and he passed away in late August of 2020. So he gave it a beating. He definitely fought hard.
Yeah. Yeah. Were there did you have any doubts about continuing after he passed away, or were you did you pretty much want to continue for him?
Um, it's what he wanted, and no, I mean, I didn't really have any doubts because the unfortunately we're all replaceable. The brand is stronger than the band for any situation. Look at what Kiss is doing. Look
Yeah.
at what Foreigner's doing. If you really want to get technical, there's nobody up there. So yeah, it's kind of it's kind of an unwritten thing. I mean, he wanted to carry it on for his family. Obviously, it's a big source of income, and it's his baby. You don't if you invent like Dr. Pepper and you die, you want people to still drink Dr. Pepper after you're gone. For not just for financial reasons, but it's your legacy, and that's his legacy.
Yeah. I want to go back to the and talk about the Rehab release. At the time that record came out, you were you were touring with Quiet Riot, you and Chuck both, but
Yeah,
neither you played on the record. You had some co-writes on there.
yeah.
What happened with that? Why weren't you guys included on the
I I
record? Or
I mean, that's a good question. I think Kevin and Frankie, they were very hands on with everything they did, and I think at my level of guitar playing 20 years ago was not where it is now. And they had a lot of specific things they wanted, like slide solos and stuff that I was really totally not dialed in with. So that's the reason for that. And I think Tony Franklin and Neil Citron, who played on it, were their buddies. They got their bucket list album together.
hmm,
And Glenn Hughes too. But I'm just happy to have written a few songs for it, and now putting this one out because I mean, I think Kevin Dubrow never got the respect he got as a songwriter.
yeah, I mean,
Because the Slade covers kind of overshadowed everything. But if you listen to "I Can't Hold On," that's mature songwriting right there.
there's a lot of deep tracks on like every record. There's like gems,
Yeah.
on every record that they put out. Guilty
Hmm.
Pleasures. The first 5 songs on that just kill.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and then the fact that we had Glenn Hughes. He had Glenn Hughes do a duet with him. That was like his childhood dream come true. So I know that they were both really proud of that album.
Yeah.
You know.
Now this record has been remastered. How has it been remastered? In what ways does it sound different, and who
It's
remastered it?
my friend of mine in Washington D.C. who has a recording studio remastered. His name's Gregory Gendron, and he was able to really put it through his system and really bring out the highs and the lows that weren't there before. And it's obviously 20 years worth of better technology.
Yeah.
You know,
hmm
it's come a long way in 20 years. So yeah, it just pops a little bit more, and it's just sweeter sounding.
Yeah. And again, I want to talk about the set list on this tour. Obviously, you want to celebrate the mental health record. Currently, I think you're playing like about 6 songs from that record in your set list, right? Is that pretty much
I think I
accurate?
think we're doing all but one now.
Oh, are you okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because you're.
I will probably do the whole record top to bottom,
Oh,
you know.
awesome, great.
And then, we got to add the QR3, that, Wild and Young off that, and then Mama We're All Crazy Now off of Condition Critical, and the song Condition Critical.
Yeah,
So,
of course, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's going to be a nice balance, and now obviously the new song as well. So, it'll definitely. It's usually like a 75 to 90 minute set. We'll stack it pretty good.
Hmm. Well, like I was saying before about Quiet Riot having some really deep tracks, some real gems on their releases. I want to talk a little bit about the two records that you made with James Durbin, Road Rage and also Hollywood Cowboys.
Yeah.
Um, Again, great records, and it's like I kind of wish that you guys would maybe include a song from both of those in your set list. As I mean, I understand why you wouldn't because of a different vocalist, but it's still great music, and I think Jizzy would kill that stuff.
Yeah, I mean that's always an option too. It's like I said, we only have 75 minutes, and I think I mean for hardcore fans they dig it, but a lot of the shows we play are like state fairs and
Sure.
festivals and casinos, and it's not super hardcore fans, and people like what they know.
Yeah.
And especially when we did a tour last year called Live to Rock, and it was Quiet Riot, Warrant, Skid Row, and Winger,
Yep.
and each one of us played 35 minutes, and you got a total of like 3 hours of music or so, and all the hits, and people like that. So we have to really be cognizant of that. I mean, you got to play what you want to an extent, but also there's a balance in there. So I think a good step in the right direction is playing the new song in the set for sure.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know,
Yeah, would you mind talking about those couple records you made? Starting with Road Rage. I mean, I mean that was kind of difficult because you had a singer, then you replaced them with James. Tell me a little bit about the recording of that record and what some of your memories are of recording that.
um, yeah, I remember having a lot of fun recording those records because the songs were kind of already written, and I just kind of have to come in and do my thing on top of them.
Hmm.
You know, and I wrote a couple for both of those records. One's called The Road, which I had demoed it out here in Vegas and then brought it into the band. And then Hollywood Cowboys, the highlight of that was making the video.
Right, that was
The,
quite a
the, the
video, right?
Spaghetti West. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was the high. That definitely polar opposite of the new video we just put out, but it definitely was fun. I'd never been an actor before, but
Yeah.
I play the scumbag criminal guy who shoots the girl in the video. So I guess I don't want to be typecast now though.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. When you first joined Quiet Riot, you joined them in 2004, correct? And you were with Kevin DeBro with his solo band prior to that.
At the end of 03, I started playing with Kevin in his solo band, and then in 04, I officially joined
Hmm.
the band. And yeah, I remember we played our first show with Chuck, Kevin, Frankie, and I. It was like June of 04, and it was with Twisted Sister and Warrant.
Wow.
And it was the first time we played without the original lineup together. And I was definitely under the microscope that day.
Yeah,
You know.
I can't even imagine what it must have been. I mean, you had a lot of experience before that. I mean, you played with Bang Tango. You were in a band, a Boston-based band, alternative band called Angry Salad.
Yep.
I mean, you've had some pretty high-profile gigs that you've played. Well, I mean, was that one? Were you nervous playing that first one? Actually, the
I wasn't.
Quiet Riot band.
I wasn't really nervous because both Kevin and Frankie, even though they put me through hell for the first year, they were very supportive of me and very
Yeah,
encouraging. And yeah, they were. If Kevin's like you got this. Be yourself. Don't worry about playing the solos note for note because that's not. I mean, you play the songs on the solos and the hits. You got to nail those. But he wanted me to stretch out, and he would stretch out too, and kind of incorporate little things into those old songs that kind of were more blues based and 70s rock based because that's really what they were into, which is
yeah,
what Rehab's really about too.
right. Oh, definitely. Yeah, it definitely has that
Yeah.
vibe to it.
Yep.
When you started playing with Kevin, what was your opinion of Carlos Cavazo as far as his guitar style goes? What did you think of him
Oh,
as a guitar player?
I'll always like Carlos is playing. He's very underrated.
Yeah,
For
for sure.
whatever
Yeah,
reason, he didn't get the credit of like George Lynch or Warren DeMartini, and in my opinion, he's right up there with him.
yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it seems unfair because Quiet Riot kind of has, the reputation of, Randy Rhoads played with them when they
Hmm.
first formed, and he played on those first two records that were only released in Japan, but still, I mean, because Randy's such a legend, and I think that sometimes takes away from Carlos, his reputation. I'm not sure why, but
I mean, yeah, I mean, the thing is, if you really break it down, the version of Quiet Riot with Randy Rhoads and in the '70s is a completely different band than what Metal Health became.
yeah.
Other than the name, there wasn't. If you listen to those records and listen to Metal Health, they don't have a lot in common.
No, they
So
really don't. That was surprising. Like when I heard those reissues that they put out, the first two Quiet Riot records that came out like in the '90s, I was like shocked at how different they sounded from, Metal Health and those other
yeah,
classic
yeah,
Quiet Riot songs. Yeah.
yeah. Well, the band was called Dubrow. They had a version of the band called Dubrow, and then when Randy passed away, they decided they tried to give the Quiet Riot moniker, another shot. So that's what they changed the name to it.
Any regrets at all not like continuing on with Angry Salad? I mean, how do you think that band would have fared if you guys continued on?
We didn't really have a choice because we signed it. We had a deal with Atlantic Records, and we got dropped before they didn't pick up our options. So, and I think there was some deal with the rights to the name or whatever. So we put out a second record under the name Star 64, and then everyone kind of got regular jobs and called it a day. And I said, well, I'm completely unemployable other than playing guitar, so I got to move to Los Angeles,
Yeah. And
and I'm
was
glad I
that
did.
yeah, well it definitely worked out for you. And why did you decide to instead of because you're younger than, these, 80s musicians, why did you
Yeah,
decide to hook up with like, 80s bass bands, Bane
because that's
Tango and
you,
Quiet
you
Riot?
know I did when I first moved to Los Angeles. I played in a hardcore band called Ignite. They were on Century Media
Oh yeah,
Records,
okay. Yeah, I remember them.
and then I played guitar for this female vocalist named Amy Allen, who was sort of like basically Evanescence type thing. But then Evanescence came out and that shelved our record.
Yeah.
And I auditioned for a lot of active rock bands like 30 Seconds to Mars, and I actually auditioned for Guns N' Roses in 2006. But the thing about the '80s rock is these bands aren't going anywhere, and I knew that. I knew that from day one. I remember Kevin saying to me, this gig yours as long as you want it, because and always keep in mind this band's going to work forever. He knew that because the brand, had been built up so well. So it's kind of like having stability. You can join a band that signs $1 million record deal, and in 2 months they're dropped and you're out of a
Yeah.
job. So I'd rather stick with something that I really believe in, because I was always an '80s kid. Grew up on Motley Crue, Poison, Guns N' Roses, Quiet Riot. So it's kind of in my blood.
Yeah. Do you feel that, a lot of these like legacy bands are going to continue without original members, or just break up and never be heard from again? I mean, it's kind of weird. It
Well,
could go either way,
a lot of them say they won't do it, but when that mortgage comes around, and yeah, they're gonna
Yeah.
do it. I think, and there's no reason not to. I mean, it's in like 15 years, most of these guys in the '80s probably won't be with us anymore. People
Yeah.
are still going to want to hear those songs, and there'll still be a Rock of Ages out there. There'll still be a metal shop. So why not give them the real thing, or
Yeah.
at least the licensed, sanctioned real thing?
Yeah. It's interesting to me, in following it back, in the day and following it all the way through to now, is that a lot of these bands had their, ups and downs, and their downs were like, pretty bad, where, a band like Quiet Riot could play in a club with like 50 people. And now
Yeah,
you guys are playing some really great crowds now. And I almost feel like Quiet Riot is almost as popular now than they were, back in like, the 80s, perhaps.
it's the band. The band was on. It's that Come On Feel the Noise is played at football games every weekend. And I think the fans our fans are now at the age where they can go out to a casino and spend $1,000, go to the show, get a room. So that makes it a more attractive to the talent buyers.
Yeah.
In the '90s, the '80s fans were still struggling to get jobs and not kind of sure, and the Seattle thing really put a wet blanket over it. But now it's kind of, if you look at '90s bands today versus '80s bands, the '90s bands aren't doing nearly the business. So
Yeah.
you know.
Do you think that might, that 90s bands is the next thing that's gonna like have a
Well,
resurgence?
they do a package tour called, I think it's called the Summerland Tour, and it's like Sugar Ray, Everclear, you know, uh, Seven Mary Three, or
Yeah, yeah,
Fastball, and they package it up, but it doesn't quite do what the '80s packages do. I mean, I don't know if you could put four '90s bands together and fill up a stadium, other than maybe Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, but a lot of those bands aren't together anymore.
right. Yeah, and I think it wasn't the spectacular that that 80s rock was. I mean, 80s rock looked cool, and 90s
Yeah,
rock
it's a
really didn't.
lifestyle. It's more
Yeah,
of a lifestyle. People want to relive the party thing. It's as Rudy would say, it's the consciousness of the '80s, the state of
yeah,
mind.
yeah,
Um, and yeah, the '90s. That's not really a place people are fond of, because that music was more depressing, and it was great. I loved, I think it's just, and also those bands weren't like, you didn't have posters on the wall and name every guy and know everything about them. In the '80s, you knew the guys in
yeah,
Motley Crue and the guys in Kiss, and they were like almost superhero like.
yeah. Were you surprised at all that the stadium tour was as popular as it was with Motley Crue and Poison and Def
No,
Leppard?
I'm not actually. It's that, I mean, if you look at that, that's probably the two of the biggest bands of the '80s, and then Poison, not too shabby, and then you get Joan Jett on there. It balances out nicely, and yeah, I'm not surprised at all, actually.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because when Motley Crue did their original farewell tour in 2015, they
Hmm.
kind of struggled like attendance wise. I know at least in Buffalo when they played the arena here, they had like about 5,000 people there. It was like a ghost
Yeah,
town. And for them to come back like 7 years later and be a co-headliner and play in the football stadium,
yeah.
I mean that's like what happened? It was,
Well, if you look at those four bands, it's a constant night of nothing but hits.
yeah,
Strength in numbers with this kind of thing. I mean,
sure.
the Skid Row Warrant package we did this last summer, I was a little apprehensive when we got added to it. I was like, I don't know how this is going to do. We're playing some big places, but we did very, very good numbers. We did 4,000 paid out here in Vegas, and
Yeah. Well,
that people don't do that anymore.
yeah,
For
that was a
nostalgia.
great bill though. I mean, that really, I mean,
Yeah,
that could be an amphitheater tour, I think, anywhere really.
yeah,
And
yeah.
especially
I'd
with the
like to do some
research.
more.
Yeah, I would love to see that again, especially with Skid Row's resurgence with their new lead singer. I mean, I think that could hit. I hope there is going to be some kind of 80s rock package going out this summer.
There'll be one way or another. I mean, the thing is, a lot of times nowadays, bands don't do buses anymore. They just fly everywhere. So, like with the Live to Rock tour, none of us were in buses. We just met up for a long weekend here, long weekend there, and then it would total 30 shows over the course of those
Oh wow.
spring, summer, and fall. But yeah, you really didn't. You're really not going to route a tour and play every night now. Also, because the fans of this music have responsibilities and jobs and children, so they can't be out on a Tuesday. They got to
Right.
make it an event and plan around it. So I think it's more weekend warrior type stuff for these kind of things moving on.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. All right, Alex. Well, I really appreciate your time. Before we end the interview, I was just wondering if you could tell me what the your three most influential records of all time are.
Okay, Appetite for Destruction,
Okay.
Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power, and Kiss Destroyer.
Those are three good ones. Yeah.
Yeah,
Since you mentioned Pantera, I want to ask you your opinion on the
yeah,
Pantera tour that's coming up. I mean, they just announced like a ton of amphitheater
yeah.
shows. How do you feel about that with like, two of the main members not being part of that? I mean, is that something that you would be interested in going and seeing?
I plan on going, actually. Yeah, I mean, I think it's great that they're doing it, because if you listen, Dimebag's riffs need to be shared with another generation of people. I mean, he passed away like 15, 16 years ago,
Yeah.
18 years ago. Yeah, it was '04.
Yeah, it was all 04, right? Yep.
I remember because Kevin Dubrow one that called me and told me, because he knew I was such a big Pantera fan, and I was shocked because that club he was shot at, we all played at a million times.
Wow. Yeah,
Frightening.
he played Buffalo the night before.
Yep.
So the Buffalo was like the last gig, and then he played that gig. And when I heard it, I was like, "Are you're
I
kidding me?
know.
Don't joke
I was
around about stuff
shocked.
like that." Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's great. I mean, it's like, and Zach and Charlie, those two guys were like in that family. It's not like they hired two kids to play and they're paying them peanuts. Those two guys are legit.
Oh, for
I
sure.
saw the
Yeah.
footage of it, and I think they sound great. They're crushing it.
Yeah, they really are. I'm looking forward to seeing that when it hits town. All right, well, Alex, hopefully you'll I'm sure you will be playing in the Western New York area. You played here twice last year. I'm hoping that.
We just confirmed a show today in Horseheads, New York.
Oh, okay, cool.
I don't know how far that is from you.
It's about 2 hours. I've been there
Okay,
before. Is it is it a club called the L?
that's the one.
Oh, awesome. And
Is that
when's
a cool
that going to
place?
be? Yeah, it's a super
That
cool place. Yeah.
that it's gonna. Oh, I can announce it right now. It's gonna be March 9th.
Oh, wow, that's soon.
Yeah,
All right, cool. All right. Yeah, I appreciate you announcing that. That's
yeah.
awesome.
You got there. You go. We just got the contracts a couple hours ago. So
Oh,
you're
cool.
hot off the presses.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Alex.